Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another drawing session here at Crypt of the Unknown. Today, I'm going to be drawing a character from one of Telltale's games, the Walking Dead games, Clementine. And Clementine, it has to be one of the greatest female characters in probably all of video games. Um, I'm not sure if she's really gotten her due in the public's eye. I'm not sure how many people think about her when they think about cool female characters in video games. Clementine to me is definitely one of the coolest characters though. Her through her struggles and hardship with the video games, I uh, I just found her so amazingly fun to play and have time with. By the way, it's just going to be me here today. I honestly just wanted to do this one by myself. The reason being is because this is a kind of special drawing for me. Most in part because I've actually never drawn a child before. Actually, I think I might have one time, and it didn't come out good. So this is me trying to temper that and, you know, practice a little bit more on it. I figured Clementine would be a good candidate for this. And I won't be talking particularly the whole time. I mean, I'll be here interjecting here and there. But I really wanted this one to be kind of more of a quiet drawing. I don't know. I always have guests on. I always have our Webs on here, my co-host for Crypt of the Unknown podcast. And sometimes it's just better to have kind of quiet moments, right? So far so good. I apologize for this part right here. I was getting used to the new setup here. If this is your first time here, then you probably don't know anything about the old setup. This is the new one. I got a ring light, and I'm still trying to figure out how to keep the paper in sight of the camera. I'm basically just drawing the hand, but I quickly look up here, and I'm like, wait a second. But speaking on Clementine, while we're waiting for me to remind myself to move the paper into sight, when I first played Telltale's The Walking Dead, I kind of had already read some of the comic books, some of Robert Kirkman's comic books. And those books, for some whatever reason, the first time didn't quite catch me. I'm a huge horror fan, a big fan of zombies, but for some reason, I just didn't get into them immediately, which is it's completely odd. But now that I've had the time to sit down and read them, I actually have all four compendiums of the Walking Dead comic book, and I will say to this day that it's probably going to be the greatest zombie story ever told in comic books. I know there's other ones that people point to as comic books that they think Robert Cookman either took from or stole from, or that they're just plain better. A great example of that would be Dead World. Dead World was and is a pretty decent comic book. I've read Volume 1. The differences between Dead World and Walking Dead, if you read, let's say, Walking Dead Volume 1, and then you read Dead World Volume 2, or Volume 1, you're going to see a lot of comparisons. Like, it's scary, the things that you're going to see, and I'll be getting into a little bit of spoilers here for Walking Dead and Dead World. But one of the main things out of Dead World that I recognized was that it had all these people in a camper, and they were trying to survive. Now, if anyone read Walking Dead Volume 1, they'll remember that that's also something that happens with Shane and, all the other cast of characters there. One of the big key differences between Dead World and Walking Dead, though, is that in Walking Dead, the zombies are just zombies. In Dead World, the zombies some of them can talk and think. So there's a world of difference there. By the way, on the drawing, when it comes to drawing hands, people say this is like one of the hardest parts to draw of, any character, whether they're alien hands, regular hands, cartoon hands, any sort of hands, that it's just really hard to get them to look like they accurately would appear in real life, and the thing about it is that you just have to keep drawing, erasing, because eventually you're going to get those hands that you want. I mean, almost try to think of the hands as balloons. If balloons, like cylinders, like 3 cylinders connecting together, one small, medium, large. But getting back to Walking Dead, I appreciated the story quite a bit when I came back to it later. The reason being is that, when you're dealing with characters in a story, especially an apocalyptic story such as Walking Dead, there has to be some sort of drama. And there has to be some sort of, adversaries. And I could see that near the end of The Walking Dead that, they kind of already went against the governor, and they kind of already went against Negan. And, they were starting to slowly establish these places where they could live, like as civilized as they could within the walls and confines. The towns with the walls they built around them, whether it was the kingdom or wherever. You could kind of see that the main shtick of the story was that, they build up a thing, whether it's in the prison or the kingdom or wherever, the hilltop, and then there's somebody there to mess it up. It's the governor, it's Negan, it's whoever, it's the zombies. And, after hundreds of issues of that, you kind of start to catch on that, like, is there anything else that's going to happen in this world? We've seen great characters die and live. We've seen people stab each other in the back. We've seen people get raped. People potentially get raped. People get killed that we didn't even see them get killed. We had to find out some tragic way. People cheating on one another. People going insane. People turning on their loved ones. Even children die in The Walking Dead comic book. It's a pretty established world for dark things to happen. As you can see, I'm trying to get the hand right here. You just got to keep doing it, Just keep erase, go over, erase, go over. You just got to, if anything, just put your own hand like around your elbow right there and just be like, well, what does it look like? But to get back to the point, I quickly fell in love with the comic book when I came back to it. And I read Compendium 1, couldn't stop reading, got 2, couldn't stop reading, got 3, especially at the end of 3, Compendium 3. Oh my god, the cliffhanger, the ending there, everything that happens. I won't particularly spoil that because I do think people should read the comic book, but when you get there, oh man. And there's only 4 compendiums. So, and they're pretty cheap, so it's not like you can't get your hands on these, but I think the big thing too is that when they started, getting to the end of the comic book, which I won't spoil, it was one of those stories where I didn't want to let these characters go. I just wanted to keep reading about their lives. I wanted to keep going on and staying with them. I felt like I'd went on an adventure with them for so damn long that I knew everything about them. I knew who they were. I could probably predict their favorite colors. And, I respect Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead for that because it really did raise the bar on comic book drama. And he set it in a world where it required that sort of thing. So maybe, you know, maybe Walking Dead might be about zombies, and the title card, The Walking Dead, might be about the people. But I was more there for the drama than the zombies, which is surprising as a horror fan. We see our Clementine is slowly coming together. I plan next time maybe tilt the camera slightly and keep my arm off the drawing so much. Again, just learning this new setup. And in regards to the show, I am going to get to the Telltale game here in a second, but I do kind of want to cover everything overall because I don't think I'll do another Walking Dead drawing. Maybe, you never know. Never say never, but in regards to the show, people say when Negan showed up that it kind of, you know, it took everything out of it that they felt was serious. And I'll agree with that. I will even say in the comic book it kind of did that. It lowered the bar a little bit. And I won't ruin it, but Negan's kind of redemption in the comic book really brought it back up tenfold. So, while it felt like Negan's character lowered the bar because he was just so over the top ridiculous with his cussing, he'd say things like fuckity fuck fuck, holy fuck, you're really awesome. And it's like, yeah, he's one of those guys. But while he lowered the bar, his redemption arc in the comic books brought it back up. And this, we're developing some shadows here, clearly. I tried to make it to where it wasn't so parallel with each other, like her body's kind of leaning on one side and one shoulder's up, and it's almost like a hunch or something. And the arms are obviously in different positions. The top hand's on top, so that shoulder would be up more than the bottom one. Just thinking about that while you're developing a drawing, it's a key thing. She looks like a geisha here in the toes. Oh, look. I can draw feet. Take that, Rob Liefeld. Just kidding. Nobody will notice this because I'll edit it out, but my grandma Nancy just called me, and funny enough, she's like, "Hey, I saw you on the YouTubes." Yeah, I'm on the YouTubes. I also made some tea because goddamn, doing one of these, talking nonstop for an hour, yeah, kind of hurts the throat. But kind of rounding off the topic of Walking Dead, the omnibuses. I've got so many graphic novels and comic books, and I got to be honest. When I look at all of them, and some of them that personal reasons I still own them, or I grew up with them, whatever the case may be. Walking Dead's omnibuses. I plan to crack right open again, probably at the end of this year, if not in the middle of it. I have to go back and reread it. It was that good, and Robert Kirkman deserves all the praise for continuously delivering pretty much every story arc, every issue. I would say the only other person at Image who I feel is on that same level of delivering. And I mean, we should mention the artist too, of course. Um, but the only other person I would say who delivers on that level, like Robert Kirkman does is Brian K. Vaughan. And Brian K. Vaughan wrote, The Last Man. And currently, he's on his break with Fiona Staples, the artist, for Saga. And I am currently caught up on Saga as well. And Saga, I mean, it really is like every single issue just so goddamn good. And, Walking Dead, Saga, those people deserve all the praise they get. And if anyone remembers what Clementine was wearing during season 1 of Walking Dead, this is that outfit. I could have went with like 2, 3, or 4, but to me, when I first met Clem, that's my favorite outfit. And to mention the artist on the Walking Dead comic, it was Tony Moore and Charlie Adlard. And people would say Tony Moore is the more, I don't know, better artist, more equipped, lots more detail to the characters. And, they prefer the way his art looked on the page. To me, I like Charlie Adler's better. It might be blasphemy, as we only got Tony Moore for issues 1 through 6 and Charlie Adler for 7 through 193. Going from 2003 to 2019. Shoo. But I just like Charlie Adler's more. And I think Tony Moore is the one whose art I have signed on a print in my closet somewhere. So of course I don't the artist that I it's not that Tony Moore's bad, but the artist that I prefer, I don't have assigned anything from them. But yeah, getting back to the game, the Walking Dead Telltale game. I don't think anyone expected that from Telltale. Reason being is because they had not delivered on some big properties already, and the way their games play, they're almost like point and click with dialogue options, little adventure games. I have a friend who's a defender of the Jurassic Park game. I think it's called Trespasser or something. Let's look real quick. It's just called Jurassic Park the game. I think Trespasser is the one with Mini Driver. Let's see. Yep. The terrible 98 game with Mini Driver. Where you get to look directly down at her cleavage. But no, I don't think anyone expected them to deliver a good game, a good story, because the Jurassic Park one was terrible. I couldn't finish it, and that's a huge IP to fail on. And they would soon to follow afterwards with a slew of other games. But at the beginning here, we kind of had Walking Dead, and I never played Wallace and Gromit. Some of the games they'd follow it with IP wise. Another comic book, Wolf Among Us. It's called Fables, the comics. Game of Thrones, Batman, Minecraft. The list goes on. But the first game, it took place, and I'll just read the wiki here to make it easy, in a fictional world such as the comic book, with events occurring shortly after the onset of the zombie apocalypse in Georgia. However, most of the characters are original to this game, which centers on university professor and convicted criminal Lee Everett, who rescues and subsequently takes care of a young girl named Clementine. Lee becomes a protective figure to her to help reunite her with her parents. Robert Kirkman himself provided oversight on the game's story to ensure it corresponded to the tone of the comic, but allowed Telltale to handle the bulk of the developmental work and story specifics. That's interesting. But does that mean he created Clementine? Hmm. Some characters from the original comic book series also make in game appearances. Of course, Glenn does. Glenn, a fan favorite. I believe he's Asian. Yeah, he's Asian American. And he's kind of like the nerd. But he died in the comic books. Spoiler. It continues here. Unlike many graphic adventure games, The Walking Dead did not emphasize puzzle solving, but instead focused on story and character development. This is true. The story was affected by both the dialogue choices of the player and their action during QuickTime events, which can often lead to, for example, certain characters being killed or an adverse change in the disposition of a certain character or characters towards protagonist Lee. Because Lee was the man. And guess what? He was a felon, too. Convicted felon. The choices made by the player carry over from episode to episode. Choices were tracked by Telltale and used to influence their writing in later episodes. The Walking Dead has been critically acclaimed, with reviewers praising the harsh emotional tone of the story and the empathetic connection established between Lee and Clementine. It won year-end accolades, including Game of the Year awards, from several gaming publications, and is considered to be one of the greatest video games of all time. More than 1 million unique players have purchased at least one episode of the series, with over 8.5 million individual episodes or units sold by the end of 2012. The success has been seen as constituting a revitalization of the weekend adventure game genre. Now, Lee and Clementine, their story kind of ends on the first season here. And I got to tell you, it kind of almost had me in tears because as much fun as it is to have, family members, like let's say a dad and a son in a video game, and that thing kind of works out and they can play off each other because they're family. There's something slightly more interesting about somebody who is an adult and takes on a child as almost as a surrogate parent, like Lee did in Walking Dead. Famously, he wasn't, like the first person in a video game to do this. We can all go back to Silent Hill 1 and remember Harry Mason and what he went through. But it's that love, the innocence with Clementine, a kid being in this soon-to-be post-apocalyptic world, and just watching her learn and react and looking up to you as you play as Lee, and you want to be responsible and you want to protect her, and at the end of the day, nobody else in your group's life matter as much as Clementine's because she's just a child. But I fell victim to it. It just fell in love with the game. And there's something to say about that I should also mention the music didn't help. It was kind of a real tear-jerking soundtrack, especially that main theme, that just sad, the do, the just, it got me every time. Starting to get Clem here, her bottom half, with her kind of on her tippy toes. If anyone wants any tips on how to draw fabric, just do what I do and wing it. Sorry if I'm being super quiet. I'm just kind of, like I said, I just really want this to kind of be a quiet episode. Been talking for half an hour, so let's just. Been talking for half an hour, so. I don't know if I should leave in that ambulance. These bottom halves here, of course, shadow. You want to make sure that when you getting trying to paint a realistic drawing that you always work with the shadows, because those are going to be the things that determine, again, as I always say, the required depth. I don't say this often either, but if anyone's made it this far, I mean, if you could, subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome. I promised I would only do 100 art videos, so. See where the road takes us. I think I just finished art session 11 a couple days ago. I'm eating chicken nuggets right now. I usually don't eat bad food, but I had a couple beers last night. You know what that means. Again, slightly angular here on the torso and thighs and legs. Kind of created a off balance feel to it, as someone would and should look. The pen I'm using is a Fudenosuke brush pen, Tombow brush pen. Probably my favorite brush pen I've ever used. I mean, at the end of the day, the worst you can do with the fabric is just have to white it out and correct it, right? Where this drawing fit into the canon, though, for me, kind of the idea I had when this started was, and spoilers for Walking Dead Season 1, the video game. I'll just say this real fast. Is when Lee dies and Clementine's on her own, and she sees two people walking in the distance, and I think the characters were Andrea and something else. They were later going to become the parents of some other character. But I think so. I think that's right. I haven't played that game in years, but I figured she sees those characters. Everyone always speculated that has to be Andrea and what's his name or something other, right? Because that's who we see her with later in season 2. And my thought was, what if they were just walkers? And for one night, Clementine's alone in a house or something. Or maybe when she tried to catch up to them, they were gone and she had to quickly go hide in a house. And I thought I would draw a scene of that segue between we don't know what happens after season 1 into season 2. And then maybe she does catch up with them later. But the idea stemmed from there. And then I just pictured, Clementine huddling in a house, scared out of her mind probably. And then, having to wait it out. And zombies trying to break in and everything. Maybe catching on that she was there. It's weird. Sometimes I actually prefer the look of the pencil rather than the ink. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I grew up in the 90s. But sometimes a pencil looks cooler, more jagged, more or less appealing. See, now this is the scary part. This is the scariest part of the whole drawing. Because not only do I have to get Clementine's likeness down, but I have to like figure out how to draw a hat on her. I've never drawn a hat on a character before, I don't think. Just like I've never drawn a kid before, just like I've never drawn Clementine before. I mean, this is all new territory for me. See, and I'm already drawing her hair, and I'm like, this doesn't look right. The baseball cap doesn't look right. The hair doesn't. None of it's coming together. And I keep looking. I'm like, But that's just what you have to do. Art. You don't have to get art on the first try. You should keep erasing, keep figuring it out, keep playing with it. It's the only way you're gonna learn. See, and the problem here is that eyes are easy to draw. I have to get them to look like Clementine's eyes, and I have to sort of dictate where they should go on the face. And right here, I was just having the biggest trouble for two reasons. First off, I drew the right eye better than I drew the left eye. Or at least that's what I felt like. I was looking at it, I'm like, why does the left eye just not look as good as the right eye? And there's a point in the video, I don't think you'll be able to notice it, but my roommate, I was like, I can't get her face down. Like, what's going on? What am I missing? And she came over and she looked, and because she was walking by, and she's like, "Hey, don't people have ears, buddy?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, her ears. I forgot to draw her ears." See, you'll see me, or maybe I cut it out, but you'll see me dicking around with this left eye like so long. I was just like, oh, it won't come out right. There she is. See, gotta fix that arm too. Again, I apologize that the camera isn't slanted so you could kind of see more of what's going on. Be more involved. It's a learning process. Damn cameras. Also, as a tip, because I was on YouTube and I was looking at other like people draw Clem. You're always curious what other people did with the character with their art. And most of the time, what people did is they would just like take a picture of Clem and just draw the exact same thing. They'd look at it and just draw it. Same thing. And what you have to remember when you're drawing something is if you can do that, you can draw this character from any angle. You just need to learn how to work the angles. So my advice to anyone is if, you're like, oh, I'm really good at looking at this picture and drawing it exact, then you're good enough to do it from any other angle. You just need to, believe in yourself. Oh man, as much as I wanted to keep those eyebrows, her hat wouldn't look right if I left it where it is. But at least you get to see them before they go away. I guess I should mention this too. Is I promised I would draw more backgrounds, so I do on this one, but I kind of farted out. I don't really like put all the effort in the world into it. That's not because I don't care about the background or anything. It's more or less just because I'm not used to putting this much time into my drawings. I wish I had more time. I like when I recorded the video for this. I knew I was going to be working 7 days in a row again. I just had a couple days off after working 9 days in a row. So I basically used my last day off to make this video here, and I didn't want to keep going. It was like 4 in the morning. I was like, I'm just gonna draw the background as fast as I can. So, but you know what? The reason why I draw this, and I'm a big fan of Resident Evil and big fan of Walking Dead in general, is when I was growing up, I was kind of raised on zombies anyway. You know, my dad introduced me to Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, and honestly, the first time I saw Night of the Living Dead, it was like my first panic attack. I literally froze in place, and it was those one of those shots where you just see all the zombies just slowly walking towards the house. Like that's all it was. I didn't even know what they were. I just knew something was wrong. It freaked me out, and I loved it because truthfully, I do like the idea of barricading yourself in and trying to survive the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, and trying to fight off the Walking Dead. Uh, of course, it didn't work out for them. I mean, I feel like it would for me, but that's just hubris, I assume. And you see, again, I haven't drawn the ears yet, so never forget the ears. And this is the lesson of, I'm adding detail to the shoulders here. Detail I believe I cover up because I simply didn't remember to put the ears in. I don't know why I'm so sniffly today. See, and this is me trying to figure out the hat. I'm just like, what does the billfold look like at this angle? And you'll see me continuously draw and try and erase here because that's what you need to do. Do it till it's right, or you feel it's right. Doesn't look right. And there can be a certain frustration with that. Nothing wrong with being frustrated when you can't, build the shape immediately. Not everyone's a wizard. 7th level art wizard. Yep, see? Shake the fist. Ah, why can't I draw the stupid hat? I'm so scared to mess up the face there. Clem, her nose is very much, it's like a slope, you know, and then it has that bridge underneath it, so it wasn't really too hard to figure out. And her eyes, based on the game's look, pretty easy to draw. Her hair, also easy. Me inking the arm here wasn't just because, excuse me, just because I wanted to and I wanted to get out of the way. It was because I couldn't figure out the hat, so I'm like, all right, I'll come back to it. But as I was saying, uh, Dawn of the Dead, people could look at it now and, when they look at that movie, they think, man, all those people are painted blue. Yeah, not Tom Savini's best work, but then again, he had to make up like 200 zombies every day, so it's it's not like he really, had all the time of day and materials to do it, especially when they were renting out the mall at night. But as a kid, I didn't see that. All I saw was rotted flesh, and I think the highlight of the movie when it comes to how dark that movie actually is when they first bust into that. It looks like kind of like a ghetto tenant building that all these guests are running in, and they've obviously been suffering from the zombie bites, and people have died. And they threw them down the trash chute, so there's this huge, just caged in group of zombies and rolled up in sheets and moving around and eating each other and eating flesh. And when the zombies break through the barrier of one of the boarded up, I think it's a door, and they just fill into the hallway. Stuff like that just creeped me out as a kid. I couldn't handle it. I still have the Ultimate Edition of Dawn of the Dead as well on DVD. Classic movie. Soundtrack by Goblin. Goblin. Man, if nobody's ever listened to Goblin, please go listen to Goblin. They're just one of the coolest bands. I would suggest listening to the theme song to Tenebrae, which is a Dario Argento movie. Tenebrae? Yeah. you see the opening there on the arm where the arms connect. It's not fully. There's not a full line all the way through. I'm not sure why I left it like that, but it just looked cool. So, go with your gut instinct when you're drawing. Something looks cool, even though it may not make sense all the way. Stick with it. And my hands aren't perfect. They look perfect almost. Say like 99%. But you just got to work on them. Of course, later when I would watch Day of the Dead, Dia de Muertos, the George Romero movie, not the shitty ones that came out later. I didn't even watch those. I knew they were bad, and people told me they were bad. But Day of the Dead inspired so many things out of me because I was so. This is a funny story because I was so into zombies and Resident Evil and pretty much anything that was The Walking Dead. I would consume it, and it got to the point where I said, you know what I want to do with my life? I want to make video games. So I started looking for colleges to apply to. And in the meantime, I wrote a 200-page script, my first one ever, of a video game that I wanted to do. And this is the funny part, is that, well, Day of the Dead inspired it, so it took place underground. They're doing experiments one of the first things you do, you're kind of like the jobber there, is you have to feed a cow to a room full of zombies. And, there's like a crazy doctor down there, Dr. Farzik. And, he's the one who ends up kind of like letting him go and causing this viral outbreak in the labs. Almost Resident Evil like as well. But I was thinking Day of the Dead when I wrote it. And so, anyways, it's 4 players escaping the lab was 1 level. Going through the city was going to be 1 level. Going through the suburbs was going to be level 3. And then level 4, you would find out that there was another lab on the other side of town that you'd run into. And Dr. Farzik, his main research, which they quit funding for, was cloning. And you would get to the other lab and just there would be like thousands of Dr. Farziks there because you realized that he released all of his clones. And I thought it would be creepy just to see all these, crazy mad scientists, dude, coming after you. And, when you think about it, it's like, okay, 4-player zombie game. There's campaigns through the city where they're trying to escape. And there's zombies. What does that sound like? Left 4 Dead, maybe? And I had Googled it. I Googled 4-player zombie game right after I finished my script. And right as I was applying for school to go to college to learn how to make video games, to make that video game. And what shows up on there? It says, coming soon from Valve, Left 4 Dead. I was like, me and somebody else had the same idea at the same time. This is this background. It just kind of appeared there. I want to save everyone the time of me just doing that little random like couple lines, and now I'm wasting your time watching me straighten them. But you can kind of see where Clem's hat finally came in. I forget what the D stands for. I think it was the town that they were in, right? It wasn't Derry, though, right? uh, you could see all the gray around the left eye because I just kept erasing it and erasing it and erasing it. There's there's gonna be a time lapse at the end here. It's gonna show you me drawing the background really really fast, really quickly. Um, and again, I just kind of threw it on there. I promise to try harder in the future. And my idea for episode 100, well, episode 99.5, I haven't decided what to do for 100 yet. But episode 99.5, which would kind of be a bonus episode, is I would kind of go through all the drawings I did, all 99 of them, and, see, hey, like, maybe I should fix this or change this or something, and I could light box it real quick and then make improvements, because after a while you can look at something and be like, hey, man, that is, could work on that. Anyway, I didn't go to, well, I did go to school for game programming, but about 2 semesters in, I realized it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I kept writing all through my 20s. And I got better at writing over time. And my stories started getting smaller. And as they got smaller, I said, wow, this is kind of like a comic book. And, I had been reading comic books all my life. And I thought, wait, that's what I want to do. I want to make comic books. Like, I love comic books, and I'm a little slow sometimes. But I said I love comic books. I've been reading them my whole life. I love to draw, and I love to write. It's a no-brainer. And I had that epiphany right as I was writing some pretty good stories that I was happy with. And ever since then, I've been, trying to push forward and get closer to moving into the comic book industry, which is my dream. Maybe I might not ever be a top professional artist, and that's fine. I mostly do these for fun. Drawing literally is a stress reliever. It's great. But my writing, yeah, I gotten real good at that. Not that I'm tooting my own horn, but you can see your own improvements after a lot of practice. A couple of things I should say before I get out of here is I have a co-host on the show. He has his own YouTube channel. It's called The Critical Android. If you want to check that out, he'd probably appreciate it. He's a pretty busy guy, so sometimes he's here with me on the art episodes as well, but he's mostly around for the podcast. Again, if you want to subscribe to our channel, please do, because that helps out a lot. It's hard to start a new channel these days on YouTube without people wanting to help support you. So if you could do that, it'd mean a lot to me. I do put a lot of time into these. And you could follow me on Instagram at Cyberpunk Holiday if you choose to check out these zombies up here I'm drawing. The first one I drew here, because I was just like putting in stills. I was like, I'll just put these in and then fix them later. I drew the dejected zombie. That's dejected zombie. And then up here I drew the Frankenstein zombie. The one who, Frankenstein's monster zombie, I should say, who has his arms outstretched, needs brains. And then over here I put the depressed zombie, the one who's just given up. He's like, I can't go on. I haven't had brains in forever, and I'm just gonna sit down and chill. And the thing about backgrounds is I can never decide on what I want for them. They're always hard to be happy with. And so I was gonna do the sunset, there he is, depressed zombie. And I was going to have the clouds rolling in, the horizon line, all that stuff. And then I thought, you know what? Nah, I'd rather just have like a static background. Too much work at 3 in the morning after working 9 hours. So I do away with that background. I try to add like this little like person here. I don't know if it was a woman or what I was trying to go with, but I try to add her here in the corner, as you'll see. Oh yeah. I was like, well, if I'm going to use a Doom card to make straight lines, then I might as well pick the one I want. So I just grabbed the Revenant. I put too much thought into some things that just don't require it. But this was a lot of fun. And again, I love The Walking Dead Season 1 Clementine Lee. I just finished the final season. I got to see the end to, quote unquote, the end to Clementine's story. I won't spoil it for anyone, but please give it a shot. I actually think Season 4 is as good as Season 1. And you'd be missing out if you didn't treat yourself to it, because it's got It's got some real zingers, and it's the best looking Walking Dead video game by far. So do that. Check out Robert Kirkman's book. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff if you please can. I'd appreciate it. I'm on Instagram. My co-host's YouTube channel is Critical Android. Suggest anything for me to draw, and I'll do it for you. If it's cool. But anyway, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I think my throat is about to fall apart as I've been sitting here recording this. So I'm going to go get me some water. Hopefully I don't get eaten on the way. Brains. Everyone have a good night, and thanks for being here.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims.